After my dad died, his lawyer pulled me aside and said, "You aren't in the will because your father found out you aren't his biological son." I just stared at Mr. Hoffman like he'd grown a second head. My dad had been dead for 3 days. The funeral was yesterday, and now this old dude in a cheap suit was telling me I wasn't actually related to the man who raised me for 24 years. "What the hell are you talking about?" I said. He adjusted his glasses and pulled out this folder. Inside was a DNA test from one of those mail-in companies, dated from 8 months ago. The results showed 0% probability of paternity between me and my dad. My mom had been dead since I was 7, car accident, so I couldn't exactly ask her about this. My dad never remarried, never even dated anyone seriously after she died, and now he was gone too, and apparently he'd spent his last months thinking I wasn't his kid. "Your father changed his will 6 months ago," Mr. Hoffman continued. "Everything goes to your cousin Austin. Austin, my deadbeat cousin who hadn't spoken to my dad in 5 years because dad wouldn't lend him money for some crypto scam. That Austin. This is bullshit," I said. "My dad wouldn't do this without talking to me first." Mr. Hoffman just shrugged. "I'm just the messenger. The will is legally binding." I went home to the apartment I'd shared with my dad and started going through his stuff. If he really thought I wasn't his son, there had to be more evidence. Some explanation. Something. In his desk drawer, I found a letter. Not to me. To my mom. Dated from before I was born. And it was from some guy named Frank who used to work with her at the hospital. The letter was romantic. Talking about how they needed to figure things out and how complicated everything was. I felt sick, but I kept digging. Underneath that letter was another envelope. This one had my name on it, but it was sealed. I ripped it open. Inside was a handwritten note from my dad. It said, "If you're reading this, the lawyer already told you about the DNA test. I'm sorry I didn't have the guts to talk to you in person, but I need you to understand something. I don't care what that test says. You're my son. You'll always be my son. The reason I changed my will wasn't to punish you. It was to protect you from what comes next. Check the safe deposit box at First National. Box 347. The key is taped under my nightstand. I love you, kiddo." My hands were shaking. I found the key exactly where he said it would be. The next morning I went to the bank. The safe deposit box was full of documents, legal papers, financial records, and a flash drive. I took everything home and plugged in the flash drive. It had video files, dozens of them, all recordings of my dad meeting with some private investigator over the past year. Turns out my dad had gotten suspicious after Austin started visiting him out of nowhere last year, being all friendly and helpful. Austin had convinced Dad to do one of those ancestry DNA tests for fun to trace the family tree. But then Austin had somehow gotten access to the results and saw that I wasn't a genetic match. He'd been blackmailing my dad ever since, threatening to expose the truth to the whole family unless Dad gave him money and changed the will. My dad had hired the investigator to prove Austin was behind a whole scheme. The investigator found emails, text messages, everything. Austin had even faked additional documents to make it look worse than it was. The goal was to isolate me from my inheritance and from the family, so Austin could swoop in and take everything. But here's the thing. My dad had already contacted a different lawyer, one Austin didn't know about, and set up a trust in my name. Everything he actually owned, the house, his savings, his life insurance, all of it was already transferred to that trust 2 months before he died. The will Austin thought he was inheriting, it was for an empty estate, just debts and medical bills. I took all the evidence to the investigator my dad had been working with. He contacted the police. Austin got arrested for fraud and attempted theft. At the police station, when Austin saw me, he had the audacity to say, "Come on, man, we're family." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, and now I understand why you got kicked out of every family reunion." The cop next to him actually laughed. Austin ended up with fraud charges and had to pay back the money he'd already squeezed out of my dad during the blackmail. I got the house, the savings, everything my dad had actually wanted me to have. And I found out the truth about the DNA test too. Turns out my mom had a twin sister who died young, before I was born. Some genetic thing with twins can make DNA tests weird with their kids. My dad was my dad. Always had been.